Do 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 do. Welcome to the Red Bean Podcast, the New Orleans edition. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
And I'm Dr. Frog.
I think today we're going to be talking about a movie we just watched called Replicas, starring Keanu Reeves.
Delightful. It was wonderful seeing Keanu Reeves be as bewildered as possible. I feel like that was most of the movie, and
I love that.
Typecasted him for this.
I like it because he wasn't perfect. You know, it's like the whole situation was completely out of control, and he's kind of like, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to kind of swing it,
Keanu Reeves in over his head, confused at what's going on around him. It's a great movie.
And it kind of reminds me of doesn't it seem like he's confused in a lot of his movies, though?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that they typecast him for that role. They're
like, Keanu Reeves, you're the guy that's the best at looking confused and not showing what's going on.
Yeah.
We had the right man for the job.
Yeah, a little bit of gun fu, a little bit of a. But to be honest, there wasn't as much action as I expected. It was a lot more
psychological,
internal struggles around moral dilemmas early on.
Yeah, so maybe let's go over the overall idea of the movie. Of course, this is going to have spoilers because this movie was written in 2017, so you just got to...
Oh, it's actually that recent.
2017, yeah. And so it kind of looks like it didn't make its money back. I don't know, because I see the budget was $30 million, but the box office was $9.3 million.
Yeah, I don't
know. But, this kind of reminds me, when I watch this is kind of one of those... like direct DVD kind of thing, You know how they used to be like, hey, we're going to make this movie, but we're not even going to put it in the theaters. Yeah. Even though that says box office, I feel like this is one of those movies where like, okay, the minute we can take it off, we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be on a streaming selection within a year, I'm sure.
It does look like something you would see on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Certainly, yeah. It holds up compared to a lot of other recent sci-fi movies. I think the ideas that it wrestles with is nice. I think it did stretch itself a little bit longer than it could have or should have. I think. How long was this movie? 2 hours, 2.5?
About 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like it could be an hour and a half.
Yeah, they kind of dragged it out a little bit. But let me read the synopsis so our audience knows what they're going to get themselves into, or at least maybe not. We're going to give a rating for it. But the synopsis of the movie is William Foster is a brilliant neuroscientist who loses his wife, son, and 2 daughters in a tragic car accident. And wasn't that tragic? I was like, whoa.
Oh, pretty brutal. Yeah.
And then he's utilizing cutting-edge technology. William comes up with a daring and unprecedented plan to download their memories and clone their bodies as the experiment begins to spiral out of control. Foster soon finds himself at odds with his dubious boss, a reluctant accomplice, a police task force, and the physical laws of science.
Wow. That is a mouthful.
I know. But one thing I do like about this film, and I like to show it to people, is it has a certain level of unpredictability.
That's true. I did not know what they were going to do next. Every time Keanu Reeves got into a car, they were spiraling out of control at 50 miles per hour, who knows where.
I almost feel like Replicas is kind of like...
drive to this building, drive to that building.
I swear, like the wife should be kind of like, husband, your license has been revoked.
Oh, she did an amazing job. If Keanu Reeves had this bewildered look going on, she had this wonderful vacant expression the entire movie.
You see, that's why their marriage works. That's why I think it works.
What do you think they talk about if they were to go on a dinner date? Would they just look across the table at each other with their mouths slightly open, going, "What?
It's my brain. It's chemistry. That's all it's about.
Science. It's science.
It's just science."
Yeah. Anyways, I think they actually worked really well on camera together. But there were a lot of blank expression kind of scenes.
What I like about it was Alice Eve. I don't know that was the actress who played Mona Foster, and then William Foster, of course, was played by Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. And then there's also the minor character sidekick Eddie,
Man,
played
Ed.
by Thomas Middleditch, who was Richard on Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about
that's
that.
kind of how he blew up. And this makes sense because this came out in 2017.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they had a lot of interesting chemistry.
I just love Ed. Didn't you like Ed in the movie? I thought he
He's
was
a likable person, a little bit of a pushover, but
but he had limits to the point where he was like, no, we're going to spare spoiler territory right now, but there's a part where this bowl shows up, and I'm just looking at you while we're watching the movie. He's like, okay, I'm willing to bury your dead family. I'm willing to do unethical human cloning. I'm even willing to be a part of this whole thing by stealing some equipment at my job that's worth millions of dollars. But you know what I can't do? I cannot pull random names out of a jar.
Yeah, to decide who
can't come back.
But here's the thing, though.
Because what happens in that movie...
I can sit here and bemoan the fact that whenever Keanu Reeves gives him an order, like, no, we're going to take the dead bodies over to wherever, he just kind of throws his hands up and says, well, okay, even though he disagrees with it. But if I put myself in his position, if Keanu Reeves tells me to do something...
you better do it.
I'm probably going to follow his lead.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. If it wasn't Keanu Reeves, if it was,
because the conundrum in that whole part was they only had 3 pods, and it was 4 people in the family.
Oh yeah,
and it took 17 days to make one human with like proteins and amino acids and calcium.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if it was Russell Crowe barking orders, I might not have followed him as readily.
I don't know. Keanu Reeves has a way of like being forceful, but he's also kind of like being buddy with.
Here's what's interesting to me, knowing that this came out in 2017. CD Projekt Red must have been in development with Cyberpunk 2077, which released, I believe, in 2020. Let me see if I get the release date correct on that. But it's amazing how much work he's done in the sci-fi space.
Yeah, the one thing...
Exactly, December 2020. So, and it probably took 4 or 5 years of development. So, he was working as a voice actor and a body model for that sci-fi replicant project in CD Projekt Red, maybe overlapping some of his acting roles in 2017. Well, if this movie Replicant came out in 2017, they probably did the shooting in 2016 and 15.
It said the release date was January 11th, 2019, though.
Oh, the movie they released in 2019.
But I think it was filmed in 2017.
Okay, but you see, there's still this overlap. But, I just think it's interesting when you see some of the projects that he was in and the similarities in themes that they were going over.
Interesting.
If, for those who don't know, in Cyberpunk 2077... Keanu Reeves' character is ends up having his memory and personality implanted into someone else.
Yeah.
And a very, very similar kind of idea of consciousness swapping in this movie.
What I think was interesting about this film, what caught my eye, was this whole part where he was trying to figure out why was that guy in the beginning of the movie not... Why did he reject being put into a machine? And what they really start pushing towards is this idea that you have a mind and a body, but then there's a connection between those two. The only way you can really connect is my mind connected to a heart? Is it connected to my lungs?
Yeah,
is it connected? So there's this idea that it's not just a body and a brain, but it's the body and all the organs that are attached to it. It's all these connections that if you're being
feel like himself.
Yeah. So if your mind was being put into a machine, you would lack that ability to communicate because you wouldn't have a heart. You'd have to make it basically in the
Yeah.
film, he essentially said the only way we can make this work is we trick your brain into thinking that this robot body actually has organs in it, so your mind doesn't reject it.
Yeah, one reason why I didn't quite like, I mean, I understand that was a message throughout the film. I think it'll appeal more to people who might subscribe to what's called a real self or deep self view of personal identity, how they see themselves through time. And so if you think there's a true self, then you're going to say, oh, this doesn't feel natural. I feel out of place. But I don't think that would actually happen if your consciousness was actually aware in some other facet.
See, it's weird. The brain, the way we respond to things is so strange. For example, I always think about this story I heard on NPR.
Certainly.
And it was about it was about an ape. This little baby monkey or an ape. They had two mothers in the cage with the ape. They had one mother with like this fur on it. It was very fuzzy. But then they had another one that looked like it was all metal. But it actually had udders on the metal one that can actually give milk. But the furry one would not give any type of sustenance. But you know what? That little monkey stayed with the fuzzy one the entire time. It would actually literally hold on to the fuzzy one, stretch its body out, suck on the little little teat on the metal one, and then go right back to the fuzzy one. So what this is telling us is that there's more than just this primordial need to just consume resources. There's a deep fundamental bond that we need.
There's a sort of memory in the body.
Yeah, like there's something that's beyond eating and survival. There's a certain thing that if we lack this thing, then we lack a connection into the world that we live in. At least I think that's where they're kind of...
Yes.
Maybe I'm...
No, you're right. It's a fascinating point.
It's interesting because it's like... The other aspect to the movie was just imagine... we and you were talking about it just for a few minutes, and I was talking to you like... What would you do if you ran into your own self? Like if you cloned yourself and then you looked at a version of you as being a robot looking back at you.
I think that'd be okay. It did a little bit of a trope where, the robot, now that it's conscious, it can move super fast and be super better. To be honest, some of these robots I think would be clunkier than the actual efficiency of humans.
Oh my gosh, yes, some of them.
But I mean, even if you could have control over the leg movements and things. Its attempt to walk or run would probably stumble or fall over.
See, that's the thing. There's a thing called Big Dog. Let's watch that by Boston Dynamics. Ever since I saw that totally changed my mind on
really
robots. Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, so they made a dog that is made to run fast.
No, this thing can do anything. And when I say anything, I'm gonna show you something, and we're just gonna kind of react to it.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of one of the Star Wars droids. That floats.
Yeah, but this is the thing about those legs. You're looking at them, and it looks like two people like carrying something on top of their head. But this is the scary part of that. Right now, I don't have the audio running, but this thing is loud as hell. If I took off the mute, we just hear this buzzing noise because it's basically a giant generator because it takes all this electricity to run this thing. Mm-hmm. Here's the scary part. What happens when this thing can be powered by batteries and the head is a gun?
Oh, you can shoot
Look at
wherever
this.
it looks.
Look at that. He kicked it.
Oh, it adjusted pretty well.
And it didn't fall over. Is that crazy or what?
That's got to be quite a job, just kicking this
look at this.
Mechanical
and look
dog.
at it slippery. It's ice on the ground. Look at that.
Whoa, and it's recovering.
And it didn't fall. It didn't fall. Is that any crazy or what? That this thing cannot... This thing could go up mountains. This can go on uneven terrain. It'll just keep coming after you.
Just have to mount a gun on it. There you go.
That's what I'm saying. All it needs is a battery, like a really super powerful battery, and a head for a gun. And it's like, dude, this is the Terminator. This is the Terminator.
There you go. It's a Skynet right here.
Could you just imagine, like, you're a soldier and you just like show them a picture, be like, find this person and kill them, and then they send the robot up some mountain
I
somewhere.
just wonder what previous generations would think of looking at this.
Look at this. This is like, whoa. This is
it
the
can
big.
walk in snow.
It's walking on the snow. Yep.
My goodness.
This thing is. So for our audience who's not watching this, this is Boston Dynamics Big Dog. You can pull it up on YouTube, and this is a new one. They take this thing into the woods. They have this thing. Someone kicked it. It didn't fall over. So what this is telling me is that robots in the future, if they look like Boston Dynamics, I don't think they're going to have.
Well, okay, so here's my point.
But this is more of efficient for combat. Like, this is something that you'd want to send to a war zone.
You're missing the difference between a robot and a cyborg, right? So with a robot, you're right. We can completely program these things to be great, but in the example we're using, where there's human consciousness that's operating the mechanics of it.
Look at that.
How fast it's going. About. So instead of looking at the robot and saying, "Wow, robots are great," yeah, and so let's assume that the cyborg is going to be great. I would do the exact opposite. I'd say, look at how great this robot is. Now imagine how clunky humans are. Now imagine that the human that can't keep track of all of its functions is now in control of these thousands of functions. It's going to be horrible. If human consciousness had that, it would move much worse.
Yeah,
it would fall over and it would have trouble staying up. Or
just imagine, you would be almost like animal-like if you came back, if your mind was cloned through this neural imprinting process. See, what would that? I actually had a dream, and this is.
Well, I actually made a joke about that when they were bringing back the family a little bit. You know, if the kids are just drooling on themselves, and the wife's like, oh, you know, it's like, if you come back with zombie humans.
Yeah, you can't underestimate zombie humans for sure.
Sounds like a new anime.
Actually, there was that one that we wanted to see. Actually, the one with the girl that's like in the classroom, and they're all like, "Oh no, everything is fine," and it's like not fine because there's zombies everywhere. I can't remember that one.
Corpse Party?
Yeah, Corpse Party, something like that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll review that later.
But overall, what would you say about Replicas? Would you tell people to check this movie out?
I would say if you're a sci-fi enthusiast, you would like it. Otherwise, I think it's far too slow. I think you can cut a third of it and have it be even more meaningful than it currently is.
So, like, out of 1 out of 10,
it doesn't satisfy the action itch that you want, but it doesn't satisfy the drama itch that you want. You have to really like science fiction going into it.
Yeah,
and care about it. Similar to Christopher Walken's Brainstorm.
Yeah, you told me about that.
You know, they wax and wane for 3 hours on the same topic, right?
They're just like working it over and over again. They're like, we just can't get enough.
Yeah,
of this
like,
topic.
oh, can you believe that this thing is? Yeah. So honestly, I would recommend it if maybe you come across it on a streaming platform. And
or the dollar bin at the
dollar
store.
bin, yeah, something like that, yeah.
That'd be great. And you're like, yeah.
And you're like, yeah, it is not a waste of 2 hours, but it is something that I wouldn't actively seek out if it were in the theaters.
That's true. It hasn't been there for a while. But one of the things I like about this movie is that, unlike the movies we see today, I felt like this movie was taking some risks.
It did. You could tell that it was creatively driven rather than maybe corporately driven.
It wasn't. This was not decided by a committee. It doesn't feel like a committee approval.
You could tell maybe it was stemmed from a short story or manuscript that was, from a creative person rather than a boardroom.
Yeah, because that's kind of dicey to start the movie in the beginning where your whole family gets massacred.
Well, it was a little bit into the movie, maybe half an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
So,
you got a little character development, but
they want you to build an attachment with the characters first. So,
and then when they get karate chopped there, but out of 1 out of 10, literally, oh man, the lady, I felt so bad for her when the tree came through the vehicle.
Oh yeah.
So out of scale out of 1 out of 10.
Which by the way,
yeah.
he kept driving. You know,
Dude, that
it doesn't.
guy.
He can hit a car, and he still has that gas to the pedal to the metal. The tree falls through the tree. Hey, how about we just press on through the woods and and then you just keep going. You know, I feel like
I feel like Keanu Reeves is more dangerous with a car than the gun.
You know, if I was his wife, you know, I would turn to him and grab the wheel or shout at him or something. She didn't do any of that. She turned to him and said, "Oh boy, this is scary, but I trust you, Keanu." You know, and I'm thinking, who you know, that is an angel.
Yeah, that's all I can tell you.
Who wants to go through the Universal ride of Replicas driving simulator and still keep your cool and smile for the camera? You know,
It's more like after that ride's over, you're kind of like, I hope Mr. William Foster gets his license revoked for the rest of his
I
life.
really think Keanu Reeves did Speed, and now anytime he's driving a car, he can't go less than 50 miles per hour.
He's like,
in any movie.
He's like, I have a lead foot. I just can't control
He's like,
it.
oh, it's the middle of the night. We're going to go to a clinic, 50 miles per hour.
Honey, it's raining outside. We're even going faster now.
Eddie's like, well, you know, we have 72 hours. We don't have to do 50 miles per hour.
We need to go there immediately, even though that we beat most of the terrorists when we got there.
As much attention from the neighborhood as possible.
I do like this idea of simulated tension. They did that a lot in the movie where they're kind of like, oh man, is he going to do it? I don't know. Is he going to do that? I like that because there was like a certain anticipation that this was going to get more intense. But back to what I was saying, out of a 1 out of 10, what would you give it?
I give it a 5.
5? Okay.
5 out of 10. I thought of giving it a 6.
I'm kind of pushing towards a 7.
But I thought of all the 6s that I like better.
I don't know. I like this one because 7. The reason I would give this a 7 myself.
Yeah.
Being 1 terrible, 10 amazing. 7. The one thing I'll say about this movie is it's very clean. It's very straightforward. It's not like some weird convoluted.
Yes.
I mean, how many times have I seen a sci-fi movie where at a certain point in the end of the movie, you're like, what are we fighting for again?
I was just waiting for the aliens to land.
I know. That's what I'm saying. At a certain point,
Plot twist.
At a certain point, it's either aliens or we're pulling out the time machine.
I was waiting for Mel Gibson to pull out the water or I don't know. I was trying to make a signs joke, but yeah, no. There's it's just when I think of like, was it The Quiet Place? You know, there are several other sci-fi ones around the same time period as well that I just think really left an impression with me more. This one I felt like they had 1 or 2 gimmicks. They really hit hard on those, and they extended it to the 2 hours.
Yeah, I think they, like you were saying, they probably could have shortened the movie a little bit. They could have wrapped it a little.
If this was a 1 hour Black Mirror, that would be amazing.
I think that would have been really good.
If it was a 60-minute condensed, Black Mirror episode, I would say, hey, wow, this is then I would give it a rightly so 7 or 8 out of 10, right? But
for me, I just felt like it was such a clean movie, and it's so rare to find clean movies where it's just like it's very smooth. The plot, everyone looks like the part. All the actors were believable. Ed was great because I loved it because Ed was. I feel like Ed kind of carried the movie a little bit. I feel like Keanu Reeves is kind of like, besides
look,
this.
I put down the acting, but really they did act to what was happening around them. There were a lot of scenes that reminded me of the independent movie Primer.
Oh,
where, they'd open a truck and they would look at some pods or something and they go, huh, and put their hands on their hips and, and look anxious for a few, 30 seconds, right? So the pacing of it was slow, which I generally like. I just felt like maybe it's because I saw Keanu Reeves on the front and I thought, okay, I'm looking at an Equilibrium, a Dark City, a Matrix. My expectations were
super high.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was hoping for something that would.
I hear you.
Be something I'd talk about for the holiday season.
I guess from my personal perspective on it, I considered it a clean movie. I considered the plot pretty smooth. The acting was pretty good. The areas that I didn't like as much as, yes, it is kind of long.
Yep.
But it's a fun kind of like, it's like a Saturday night You know, maybe you're
I
with
mean,
your girlfriend
the only
or
person
family.
carrying the comedy for me was Eddie.
Eddie
character.
carried the movie. He really did.
Carried the movie. He brought the everyday perspective to what was going on.
I wasn't even mad at Eddie towards the end of the movie, even though he kind of caved.
I really want to watch Silicon Valley again after watching this, which, you know, again, it probably came out around the same time.
Sure. I definitely got to check that show out.
Yeah.
But overall, I gave it a 7. You gave it a 5.
Yeah.
Replicas. Definitely a night out with some friends, maybe. Sci-fi lovers.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll like it
certainly,
too.
yeah.
If you liked the sci-fi channel and you were really like hammering, like, hey man, I need some sci-fi, this is right up your alley.
If you're a fan of Blade Runner and some of the more, I mean, even in Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite films, long pausing scenes of contemplation, this is right up your alley. If you're wondering, you know, what it all means and who's really behind it, and
As a fan of Battlestar Galactica,
what is human, ooh,
which we are going to have to watch that at some point in the future. That is a show.
that is a fracking good show.
That's a fracking good show. What I love about that show, though, was the same thing with Replicas. It was very clean. Even as it got convoluted.
Battlestar for me, at least in the first few seasons, was fantastic.
It got crazy towards the end, but one of the things I liked about it was that at a certain point, it was like an everything movie. It was everything. Like they had courtrooms, they had space battles, you had a judge, you had a...
The thing is, the thing that could be taken for over-the-top acting in Battlestar, for me, it makes sense given the gravity of humanity
situation.
and what's happening. Yeah. In this, I felt like it was very contained.
Yeah.
You know, it was one person's family. It was one decision on, you know, even before it took that turn. He was still freaking out about work and stressed and running around.
I do like the emotion.
You have to buy into the character. It's a character that you have to be okay not relating to. I didn't find Keanu's character very relatable.
I don't know. When he cried for his child, though, I felt bad. When he was scrubbing the drawing on the table, I felt terrible. Did you feel bad? The kid drawing? Come on.
I mean, I'll put it this way. There was no connection besides him carrying, let's say, Zoe in the first scene.
Yeah.
Besides that one scene where he carried someone for 10 seconds. There was no emotional connection or buildup. In fact, most of the scenes, and this is where the disconnect is for me, most of the scenes in the early part of the film were about him being disconnected from his family.
Yeah.
He's at work. He doesn't really know them. They're a unit, and they're saying, wow, Dad's so stressed and absent, right? And now suddenly there's a scrambling Keanu who's saying, no, my family means everything to me. I'm the best, you know, father thing. And I didn't buy it. I was like, no, you were an obsessed with your work person before, and you're obsessed with your work person now.
I can kind of see how you could see that from there, too, because he had this kind of withdrawn thing because, you know, sometimes when you're in these advanced science careers that was one of the things I was looking at. I was like, this is like a massive startup or something. It's like a do or die kind of environment.
If Keanu's wife like divorced him or something, they were in family court, I don't think he would know Zoe's favorite color. I don't think he'd know Zoe's favorite.
You know, that's a good one, actually.
So, you know, I get it. He's crying because he's scrubbing away the drawing.
The drawing.
But he doesn't care. He doesn't know what shoe size.
I don't know. He probably saved the memories. We know he saved the memories because, you know, I mean, we're not going to do the spoil. Well, at the end, you know, things work.
To be honest, he might have been a selfish person. He might have been mourning the loss of what it meant to him instead of really appreciating who his family were. As we saw, he was okay toying with memories and things like this later on.
About deleting things, about removing things.
He might be a bit of a narcissist.
I think at some point, this is what happens when people pretend to be God. You know, it turns out we're really shitty at being God.
Yeah.
We're very terrible at that.
I mean, there's definitely the theme of nature versus artificial. And
this idea that
it's not natural.
It's not natural. And just like even Ed, he was trying to be like the voice of reason, but he's also like the voice of reason that can get pushed over pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the naturalistic fallacy running throughout it, but I'm a little more forgiving of that in sci-fi.
Yeah.
The naturalistic fallacy, of course, is saying that anything that's natural is good and anything that's not natural is bad.
I don't know, there's some natural stuff that can kill you pretty fast.
Exactly.
Though.
Think of diseases or rotting flesh.
I mean, they have some viruses that have been around for like 40 or
and
50,000 or 100,000 years.
And then think of some things like that are not natural, like antibiotics and
exactly
different
some things that come off the fungus.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good wrap up to Replicas. We watched the movie. It's on Blu-ray and DVD, and it's digital as well. I think this is a good movie to check out with some friends of yours. If you're into some sci-fi and you're like, I need something fun, clean, and something interesting to sit on the couch and ponder, this is definitely up there for you.
Definitely good, very clean, wonderful actors and actresses, good cast, good money put in production. Definitely recommend.
Excellent. So that is the wrap up for Replicas, the movie review. Overall, this is our opinions, and we hope you enjoy spending some time with us at the Red Bean Podcast New Orleans edition. I am your host, Mr. Toad.
And I'm Dr. Frog.
You have a wonderful day, folks.